The first question that everyone wants to ask, the first question that's on everyone's mind, and the one that I think we're going to be debating for literal decades is what happened. In 2016, what happened is pretty obvious. Donald Trump was a populist in an era of rising populism. Hillary Clinton was about as institutionalized as you can, sorry, not institutionalized, institutional as you can get, as, America is already great as you can get. Hillary Clinton was not a particularly charismatic candidate. And also, and let's be clear here, Hillary Clinton is a woman and people are sexist. That is an element to it. Trump can get away with a lot more than a woman can. That's how it is. But she sucked and she lost. She still kept the popular vote. Trump fucked up his first term. Country got worse. Biden won. Now, after Biden, what's changed? Not much. Things are more expensive. Not by as much as the media is telling you, but things are still more expensive. Why? Well, every G7 country experienced inflation after COVID. America got it under control faster than anyone else. Why? Because of the Democrats' Inflation Control Act. If anything, the Democrats handled the bump in inflation post-COVID better than basically any other government. Did it matter? No, it didn't. The entire country shifted to the right. Everyone, everywhere. Every state. Almost every county. Everyone, everywhere. Latino men, for the first time since God knows when, broke majority in favor for Donald Trump, for the Republican candidate. Men, more so than before. White women, more so than before. Women on average shifted left, white women to the right. The exit polls do not look good. Black men and black women came out repping American democracy. Thank you very much. I am wearing a kente cloth. I am kneeling right now. I'm doing whatever you want me to do. Wakanda forever. I don't care. I will adopt any vacuous lib signifier if it means that if you let me into the cool kids club. Thank you. White men, I gotta say, my demographic not hitting it very well, even remotely, like not even close. Latino men, massive shift here, enormous shift here. Look at this. From Clinton plus 31 to Trump plus 10. In 8 years, a 41-point shift. Absolutely insane. And there are a lot of Latino men in this country. Latino women also shifted as well. Latin voters in general. Now, a lot of people are taking this in a bunch of different directions. The God's honest truth is that Trump got more or less the same number of votes that he did last time. Turnout for Trump didn't change much. The Democrats, on the other hand, lost 15 million votes. Democrats overperformed in local races relative to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris lost the battleground states across the board. We lost the popular vote. Kamala Harris underperformed relative to Democrat senators, congressmen, governors. Across the board, Kamala Harris did worse. We lost the House and the Senate, yes. It's all three branches and both halves of the bicameral legislature now go to the Republicans. Where the f did those other 20 million voters go? Well, I could cook up a bunch of narratives here about how there are a bunch of Latin people who desperately want to be the last immigrants in, or they want to be like the last, like they immigrated from Colombia or whatever. They don't want any more Colombians coming in because they don't want to be associated with illegal immigrants or whatever. One of the good ones, sure. I could talk about how young men are basically guaranteed to be Hitler because they turn 14 and they go online to look up like a YouTuber that covers their favorite video game, and 6 months later they're talking about how like Foids have roast beef pussy because they get run through by a carousel of black men. I could talk about a lot of like what led people to the right, but I think there are like a few basic answers here, okay? A few basic answers here, all right? Number one, media saturation. Republicans have dumped an ungodly amount of time, money, and effort into making sure that across every level of society, especially for men, you are just passively consuming right-wing bullshit. Legacy media doesn't matter. Talk radio matters. Legacy media doesn't matter. Your preferred YouTube video game content creator matters. It's across the board. It's omnipresent. I think it's very pointed, I think, that the demographic that seems like it experienced the lowest shift towards the right, especially for men, are the boomers, like 65 plus. Younger generations, people who get their news from the internet, it's just like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Joe Rogan, Aiden Ross, KSI, whatever, non-stop, constant saturation. And a lot of those people are too young to vote, sure, but like, unfortunately, a lot of the people who watch Aiden Ross aren't 12. They just act 12 and like 12-year-olds, but they're actually like 18, 19, 20, 21. Their life might suck, but they can make sure your life sucks too. And the other half of this, and I think the more important half, I think the half that like makes me sound the most like I'm repping my stereotype position, and you know, I'm fine with that, is just, it's the end of liberalism. I've been saying this for years. It is the era of populism. Nobody trusts the institutions. Nobody trusts the government. Nobody even trusts corporations. Republicans don't. Republicans don't trust corporations. They like the concept of American energy or whatever, but they're not out here repping Exxon, you know? They're stupid, they're inconsistent. But populism is the way of the world now. This has been the case in every single Western democracy, everywhere across the board. Whether you're in Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Britain, America, it doesn't matter. Across the board, populist messaging wins. A lot of people are making a big hubbub over Kamala Harris running a bad campaign. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think she did. I think that within the framework of her ideology, she ran about the best campaign she could with some like significant but ultimately not like game-changing ups. Was it commitment to Israel? No, that didn't decide this outcome. That did not lead to this. It didn't. Was it the Liz Cheney stuff? Nope. Demographic breakdown suggests it wasn't that either. This is not caused by some segments of society being alienated by bad policy or messaging. This is a fundamental rejection of your ideological framework. This is not like a she could have run a better campaign. It's not even a she could have been a better person. The fundamental, the bedrock of her proposal was flawed. It was flawed from the beginning. Donald Trump won in 2016. Not the popular vote, of course, but he won. And after 4 years of failure, people wanted a breath of fresh air. They chose Biden. But after Biden, what changed? Nothing. We faced the same threats. There was no fundamental transformation, just a holding pattern. People don't want a holding pattern. Yeah, it was the stalest fresh air imaginable. Nothing changed. People want change. More than anything else, people want change. People aren't happy. People aren't content. People aren't satisfied. That's it. It doesn't matter. It's not a matter of them being right or wrong. It has nothing to do with policy. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump proposing good things and Kamala Harris proposing bad things. If it was a policy-based decision, Kamala would have won in a landslide, 50 states. If it was a personality-based decision, who has better character for the presidency, it would have been Kamala, 50 states. But it wasn't about either of those things. It was about the fundamental messaging, the fundamental conceit, whether America needs a foundational change, no matter how bad it might be, or whether things are fundamentally needing to be kept on the same path. And this is the point that I've made for the entirety of my channel, that the Democrats' concession to institutional liberalism, to the shafting of Bernie Sanders, the unwillingness to adopt populist messaging, this plays well with your base because your base are the ones who are cool with it. With the general population, like that, the like, here we are with a bunch of well-crafted policies that are actually going to work. That works well with like college-educated people who know what policies work and what don't. That works with people who know things. But what about Americans? Americans don't want calm. Americans don't want peace. Americans don't want more of the same. Americans don't want complacency. Americans don't want institutional trust. They want groundbreaking, disruptive change, no matter how bad it is, fueled by populist messaging. That's what causes this. There is no like select base of the country. Like, if you take a look at this version of the version of this map from 2016, if you take a look at this, like for Hillary Clinton, it doesn't look like this. There are shifts. Some groups are gained, some groups are lost. There's like a more interesting tapestry. This, it's like, okay, Colorado, the suburbs around Atlanta, and some parts of Virginia shifted blue. Apart from that, the entire country shifted red. That's Utah. Oh my God, you're right. That is Utah. I'm so stupid. I'm trying to focus on the grand messaging. I'm focusing on the grand speech. Well, there was a part of Colorado that shifted blue, but yeah. Blue-taw. Yeah, you know, it's Utah as well, so it shifted like plus 80 Trump to plus 72 Trump or something. If she was Bernie 2.0, would she have won? I don't care if this makes me sound like a salty Bernie-crat. I think like Bernie Sanders would have shifted the entire Democratic Party in the right direction, and it would have stayed that way too. It would have been a totally different timeline. Bernie Sanders in 2016 should be viewed in retrospect like Al Gore in 2000. The fork in the road where the wrong path was chosen. Bernie Sanders crushed with every demographic that just shifted massively to the right. Bernie Sanders did disproportionately well with men, young people, and Latin voters. Those were literally the top 3 demographics that he did proportionally well with, or disproportionately well with. Good news, this is what they're saying on air, on CNN. I hope some people take the right message from this. I just don't know if there's going to be a democracy for much longer in which one might apply these lessons.
I think this is the leftovers of the 2016 kind of mess, that there were all of these issues that the Democratic Party saw laid out very clearly in 2016 after Hillary Clinton's loss, and that rather than address those issues, they moved and they migrated. What happened is that the pandemic, right? The pandemic came upon us, and Joe Biden happened to be the person for the pandemic. And I think they mistook that moment for a referendum on what the Democrats had to offer, rather than being introspective. I'll tell you one other person who I think is going to be...
Does this condemn Biden's presidency to the dustbin of history? Yes. This does make Biden a terrible president in retrospect, because the whole point of Biden is that he was supposed to shepherd America out of the Trump era, and he failed to do so. That's the you can say his domestic policy was good, and it really was during his presidency, but doesn't matter now. What tatters of it will remain in 4 years? Unfortunately, your legacy as a presidency is often more important than the actual stuff you do in your presidency.
Incredibly important. Actually, 2 other people. The first person is Bernie Sanders. One of the things that Bernie Sanders has been saying since at least 2014 has been about how the Democratic Party, if it wants to keep these coalitions, needs to talk about bread and butter issues. It needs to talk about politics. A lot of people attacked him for that, saying, well, are you saying that cultural politics don't matter? That's not what he was saying. He was saying we need to focus on these things. The other person is Stacey Abrams. We have not...
This is true to an extent, but I think there's a greater point here, and it's not just bread and butter issues, because Kamala Harris talked about the economy quite a bit. It's not just talking about the economy, it's tearing the system down. It's not even really about tearing the system down, it's about saying you will. I'm sorry, but the average voter is stupid, incredibly susceptible to progressive, populist rhetoric. It's about how you style the issues. You know, I'm sorry, but it is frustrating from the perspective of somebody who tries to make sense of politics, that deliberate irrationality might be an effective strategy. But unfortunately, that is just the case. That is just the case. So it's style over substance. Yes, it always has been. It always has been. And liberalism is dying. It has been dying for years now. After 2008, that was all it took. After 2008. It's been a slow decline. We had Obama, we got complacent, but that was the tipping point. After that, people still remember. So Democrats must change or they will perish. I mean, at this point, they might just perish no matter what. So, yeah, Obama did give speeches like a populist. Remember that Obama's popularity at the time was built largely on his ability to sound like a populist who wanted groundbreaking radical reform while actually pushing for not that. That's what people want. 2008 took it out. No one's going to trust the government again. No one's going to trust institutions again. Nobody's going to trust technocrats again. We're not going back to that era. Not for a long, long time. Conspiracism reigns, and it will continue to. Maybe for the rest of our natural lives. I say natural here like I'm in a sci-fi book. They could be extended somehow. Just a quirk, Maybe they will. Could this unironically be the birth of a more left Democratic Party? That's probably not the lesson they're going to take from this. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know. I think that our strategy right now should be more along the lines of don't die, than here's how we bring about the transformative change that we look for in society, I think that we might want to scale back our expectations very, very slightly, if possible, It's not good. It really has been happening since the 2008 recession, and it's been happening globally. Well, it was the most transparent possible warning sign to the world, even on an intuitive level, not necessarily on a processed intellectual, I've read theory about this level, that you literally have unregulated, irresponsible gambling from a handful of insane multimillionaires. And as a consequence of that, everyone on the entire planet Earth suffers for years. Like the relationship between how few people were engaging in irresponsible behavior and how like indirect the relationship with like the subprime mortgage loans being packaged and that leading to a crash and like the like estimated value and trustworthiness of the things that they were betting on, and that like cascades into people all around the world being fired from their jobs. Like after that, who's going to wake up the next day and say, yeah, this system works and I want more of it? You can promise like little itty bitty changes, but did Obama go into Wall Street and like do mass arrests for all the people responsible? No. And a lot of people are disillusioned with Obama in retrospect. He's popular still because he is admittedly a good politician and extremely charismatic, but nothing fundamentally has changed. Nothing fundamentally has changed. And Hillary Clinton ran on that and she lost. And Biden might have only won because of COVID panic. We don't know. This isn't about blaming liberals. This isn't about like drawing lines in the sand. There's already a big line in the sand, you know? Like I would say keep a good perspective on who the real enemy is. You know? Like really keep some perspective, okay? Like in terms of like the difference between like how far away I am from the average liberal versus how far away I am from Matt Walsh saying, by the way, Project 2025 is finally going to happen now, smiley face lol. Like keep in mind, like just keep in mind, okay? Keep it in mind. But if we want to move forward from this is what we have to learn. And so far, by the way, there has not been a single Western European, democratic, whatever country that has broken out of this. Canada is about to fall to the right. France has been losing ground to Le Pen every single election. Over in Britain, after over a decade of Tory incompetence, the Labour Party barely manages to win, and only because the votes got split between Reform and the Conservative Party. Germany is going to fall to the AfD. We're not on the other side of this. We're in for the long haul. Not a single... Denmark doesn't count. That's not a real country. Not a single real country has come out the other side of this yet. We don't know what materialist process, what solution, what outcome produces the like solution to this. Fascism is necessarily self-defeating. It's irrational. It's it can't sustain itself for long. So inevitably, something will change. But what? What about Ireland? I don't know. It's like a tax haven. Does Ireland even have a government? We don't know how to get through this. I am a believer in like Marxist historical materialism. I do think that fundamentally there is a dialectic that plays out on a national and international level, a response, counter response, a belief, a synthesis, whatever, of different material forces clashing. The resolution moves us forward. You have the collapse of liberalism, largely, in my opinion, like exacerbated by the 2008 financial crisis. And as a consequence of that, people desperately crave populism. Liberal messaging has been primarily anti-socialist, not always, like they're anti-right wing as well, but there's definitely like a pretty strong push from the left against moving further to the left. Like Democrats don't want to give ground to Bernie Sanders. Republicans also don't. So there's kind of like a synchronous push towards right-wing politics, which is exactly what we saw with Kamala Harris moving right on immigration issues. From 2020 to 2024, Democrats have adopted a immigration policy that could almost be described as like 2016 Trumpian. There's no pushing back to the left. It all shifts to the right. So what happens? Well, fascism happens, and that's exactly what we're about to get. Exactly what we're about to get. And what puts us out on the other side of that? Well, back in the 1930s, fascism was broken on the wheel. But I don't think it's going to play out that way. I don't think it's like a, Hitler 2.0, let's annex Mexico kind of deal. I think that this wave is going to be largely isolationist. It's going to be cold. It's going to be dark. People are going to stop trusting one another. People are going to stop bringing in their neighbors. It's going to be about nativism, populist rhetoric about how you can survive only if you keep out the cold. I think it's going to be a dark age, in a way. And eventually that'll collapse. I don't know what brings about, like, the other outcome. All I know is that I think that, it's socialism or barbarism, folks. I don't know. I mean, it's a hackneyed phrase, but it's true. It's true. Meanwhile, we're reaching the tipping point on climate change. Yeah, Yeah, just remember that no matter how bad things seem, people fundamentally, innately want left-wing policy because left-wing policy is good. No matter what, most people, the vast majority of people, want things that make them and even other people happy. On a fundamental level, every policy push outside of that is done uphill. They need to be pushed away from the natural resting state of our beliefs, which are generally sociable and altruistic. That's not always the case, but that is generally the case. And like a boulder being pushed uphill in a Sisyphean fashion, I really do think that in an earthquake, in times of tumult, you know, the bowl gets knocked back down the hill and we return to the fundamental position, which is that you should care for your neighbor. We return to a Christ-like state. Not that that's our natural state necessarily, but I really do think that absent like outside pressures, that is what people tend to default to. Is that naive of me? Maybe, but I do believe it. I do believe it. And you can't get mad at me for believing it because it's my sincerely held religious belief, which in this country is, you know, sacrosanct. Did I misuse that word? No, I did not. Nice. Sacrosanct. Yeah, don't forget, okay? Missouri voted to establish a constitutional right to abortion. The referendum picks tell you what people want, okay? However things may play out, people do want happiness. I know I don't believe in objective morality. I just think that in a intersubjective fashion, people do arrive over and over again at the belief that they and other people should be happy. No matter how long and arduous the path we have to walk to get there, I think that is the path. Are you implying Californians want prison slavery then? The average American thinks that, like, prisoners should be raped to death. So, yeah. That's like the medium position. Like, that's like the middle of the road, moderate position. Do you still think California progressivism can survive? I don't know what you mean by still think. I haven't been very positive on California progressivism for a while. Anyway, that's what I think happened.